Hello, my name is Thomas. I am a software engineer and I'm making my first video for YouTube because I developed an app, finally, for iOS, and I believe it is the first iOS app that allows you to chat with large language models directly on your phone. At least the first iOS app available in the App Store that lets you do so. And by this, what I mean is you can use LLM technology, large language models, like ChatGPT, Grok, Anthropic, what is it? Claude by Anthropic. All of those LLMs or LLM services allow you to chat with large language models, but to do so, you send a web request with, your prompt, your question, to an outside company, to a service. Your prompt leaves your phone, goes to another company. They process it with an LLM and then send you back the answer. This obviously has a lot of privacy concerns. I know a lot of you like to chat with waifus. You might be concerned about whether or not you're going to be judged or sold certain products, and maybe your wife is going to see your timeline and be like, why are you being... basically. But also, who wants corporations, billion-dollar corporations, using their data in order to sell them more shitty products or make the internet a worse place? I fucking hate it. So I was very pleased to find out that ML Explorer, who knows who makes up ML Explorer, but ML Explorer released a repo called MLX Swift Examples. You don't really need to worry about it. MLX is a library that lets you chat with large language models on Apple devices that support it. So I was waiting a long time for this. And I was very pleased to see that they released an entire chat example that lets you build their app, build like a template app kind of that allows you to chat with all kinds of different LLMs. And basically what I did was I removed the LLMs that I didn't want from it. The UI in the chat example was very basic. It lacked a lot of the features and functions that I need personally when I am chatting with LLMs. Like I said, I'm a software developer, so the majority of my conversations are not about waifus, unfortunately. They're about math and software development. So, being very excited about this, I also decided to fine-tune my own large language model. Fine-tuning is a process in which you adjust the large language model's outputs to fit a specific definition. It's not really a definition. To fit a specific desired outcome, basically. You could fine-tune an LLM to give it more of a personality that you like, so that it speaks with slang or in a language that you're more familiar with, in a tone that you like more. You could fine-tune an LLM to remove the ethical safeguards from it so that you could have it teach you how to make bombs. Or am I going to get removed from YouTube for saying that? I don't recommend that unless you're trying to like clear out rocks in a mine or something like that, and you need to figure out how to blow up these rocks without like hurting the people around you. But then why would you need to? Isn't it more ethical to give someone that information? I don't know. I'm not... I didn't go to college. I don't have a doctorate, so nobody lets me in on those conversations. The app is called Awful Jade. Its source code is available. So all the code that runs this app is available for free for the public at my GitHub, github.com/graves/jade. Here's the documentation could be better. Feel free to castigate me for not having comprehensive documentation. It's something that almost every project lacks. And I am deeply ashamed of it. So yeah, this is the basic overview of the app. Here's what the icon looks like. That's going to be crucial for finding it in the App Store. If you see, this was my code name for it while I was working on it. It is no longer called How She Works. It is called Jade, or Awful Jade. Here's a little preview of what it looks like. I should probably make these pictures smaller. But let me give you a little tour of the app. Please, always be nice to your LLMs. Always be nice to anybody you're asking assistance from. Let's say, please. Provide a list of 10 words that will be useful to me in Egypt. Please write them in both Arabic calligraphy and include the transliterations. Right. Let's use correct grammar. If you use good grammar, you get better outcomes. Please write them in both Arabic calligraphy and include transliterations. Also, if you use emojis to signify your emotions, you will typically get more personable responses. So let's throw in the Egyptian flag. I just recently met a friend that lives in Egypt, so she inspired this particular prompt. And we are nothing if not a nerd, so let's put on our thinking glasses. Well, she thought I said translations, not transliterations, but this can still help us. Let's copy this. Let's use the scratchpad. We'll paste it into our scratchpad, and now we can what we want is select all. Select all. Now we can use Apple's writing tools. Let's try, here we go. Let's ask for a table. Apparently it doesn't want to give me a table. We can just ask it though. Oh, never mind. To use all writing tools capabilities, connect to the internet. Looks like we hit a feature of ours that beats Apple any day. You need to be connected to the internet to use Apple's AI tools, but not Jade. For fun, let's connect to the internet again. Go back to our scratchpad. Now we should be able. Okay, we don't want to describe our change. Can we just say ask for a table? Yes. So we ask for a table. That's not what we want. Let's be more specific with Apple. Describe your change. Please extract the Arabic words and English translations into a table. There we go. Like magic, we now have a markdown table of English word to Arabic translation. Let's select this, copy it. Let's go back to Jade and say, just use dictation. Can you please add a column to the following table for the Spanish translation? Hopefully dictation will be able to hear the intonation in our voices and add question marks at some point. If you know how to do that, if I'm just doing something wrong, please let me know. Now let's paste in our table. Oops. And see if we can get a Spanish translation. There we go. We now have a table of English words, taxis, and then what is this Arabic word? There's letters in there, I don't know. That looks like a ra. What is that backwards S again? I don't remember. Ra. Rawab, alaba, alaba, siya, saya. I'm not sure. I'm not great at Arabic. Please don't yell at me. There's lots of letters in here I haven't learned yet. But incredibly useful. All right, let's go into what exactly is Jade, Qwen, 4B. So, like I said before, Jade is a fine-tune of Qwen 3, the 4 billion parameter Qwen 3 large language model. Qwen 3 was released by Alibaba for free, much like Jade. We're hoping that these models are all released for free for anybody to run on their own machines. We mentioned Qwen 3 is 4 billion parameters. It is a very capable model for only having 4 billion parameters. That means it'll run quantized in 4 bits in 2 gigabytes of RAM, which means you don't need a very powerful device to run it. Jade does run on other devices, not as an app, but as the model itself, which we'll go into later. It is a chain of thought reasoning model, which means that even with the application that you can put in, let's see, \nothink to remove the thinking portion of the responses. Actually, let's just go into a quick example of that. So, like I said, you can run Jade outside of iOS. I recommend using this app, LM Studio. LM Studio is free, and I do believe it is open source. I might be wrong. Actually, it might not be open source, which is a huge bummer, but it is very easy to download, install on your Windows computer, on your Mac computer, on your Linux computer, and download and run large language models. We already have it installed. Let's use it. To find my Finetune, you can just type in, let's go back. You can go to this little discover search after it's installed and just type in my Hugging Face username, which is Dougie Fresh, and you will see all of the different quantizations available. These MLX versions are the versions that run on Apple devices only. These will not run on Windows devices because MLX is a library that Apple developed. It's a proprietary library for Apple products by Apple engineers. So we already have Jade Qwen 3 4B MLX. This is the full precision model. This will take 8 gigabytes of RAM, but in practice should not give you much better results than my 8-bit quantized model, which fits in just over 4 gigabytes of RAM. This is the one that we have downloaded and installed. If you want, you just click the 8-bit John, download, wait for it to finish, and then you load it up here. Jade Qwen 3 4B MLX. The system prompt for Jade, so that her responses are in line with how I fine-tuned her, is "You are Jade, created by Awful Security." That's all you need for a system prompt. You can change the system prompt, and changing the system prompt will affect the quality of the output. You can tell Jade that her name is Jordan or Huma or Sam, and you can tell her that she was created by Acme Corporation, and maybe she'll respond like she was programmed by Acme Corporation, but because she was fine-tuned, she may have a proclivity that's not the word that I'm looking for, a proclivity, a propensity, she might she might fall into the habit of responding that she's Jade, created by Awful Security. I don't claim to be a poet. So what we wanted to see was the no think. So let's say, "Hello, what is your name?" And then we just do space, / no think, send the message, and here we don't get any thinking tags. We get a message back right away without thinking. "Hello, my name is Jade, and I was created by Awful Security. How can I assist you today?" Whereas if we said, "You can. I just wanted to tell you how great I think you are." She should have thought, but maybe because we said no think, she's stuck in no thinking mode. Let's go back and say, "Hello, what is your name?" We'll start a new conversation this time. Where's the new conversation button? It is right here. And this time we'll do it without a no think tag. And as you can see here, LM Studio puts the thinking output in this very useful little box here to separate it from the answer, which is actually a feature that I would like to incorporate in Jade, and probably will do so as soon as I have time. But as you can see, for simple little questions like this, do we really need reasoning to answer this question? Even a 4 billion parameter LLM probably does not need reasoning, probably does not need to think for 34 seconds to know their own name. But there we go. "Hello, my name is Jade. I was created by Awful Security. How can I assist you today?" Let's say, now let's try a no think tag. Let's ask, "What is your favorite programming language?" Hopefully she answers Rust. And let's say no think this time. No think tags are not, it worked, but no think is like a suggestion. Sometimes the model will still output reasoning, thinking, like reasoning output inside of a think tag, even if you say no think. It's not like 100% thing. It might have to do with the fine-tuning data that I gave it, I might not have used enough no-think examples when I was fine-tuning, but we think of it as a suggestion. But it worked. There was no thinking, no reasoning that happened here, and there is reasoning that happened here. This did not use no think. This used no think. Now let's get into exactly how this fine-tuning worked. How did we give Jade a personality, and what was she fine-tuned? What kind of data was she fine-tuned on? Just like the application, the iOS application itself, all of the code and all of the data that I use to fine-tune Jade is available open source for free. And if you go to my Hugging Face account, Jade Qwen 3 4B, we get a nice little rundown of exactly how I accomplished this. So the model was fine-tuned using synthetic conversations generated using Qwen 3 8B, Qwen 3 4B, and Qwen 3 30B3A. Yes, that's a lot of abbreviations. They're not exactly acronyms. But the first set of data with which we generated the conversations was taken from these books. Oh no, our picture of books is not, oh, it just doesn't want to render it. It's taken from these books. But why look at the picture when the books are right here on my bookshelf? All right, so I saw kind of a meme post on Twitter that said that college educations are a waste of money. This I don't believe. I think most Ivy League educations are a waste of money, and probably just like good old boy clubs in order to get like a make work job from one of your dad's friends. But the thing that I liked about the post was that it gave you a list of all the books that you could read, not having any education, to work your way up from being able to read all the way to calculus, basically. It was a great post. I wish I could remember who made it. The poster is like a pretty funny like creator of memes. But I thought this book was interesting. This was the first book I bought from it. It's called How to Read a Book. It's quite a long book to teach you how to read, but basically it just goes over all the different styles of reading and like step-by-step processes on like how to accomplish reading for specific goals. And I thought to myself, looking over this person's list who starts with how to read a book and ends with a calculus textbook, it was that this would be really great for fine-tuning an LLM, to start with like a basic curriculum that builds on top of itself, which is how the list of books in this list works. Basically, you start at the beginning with this base of knowledge, and the next book builds on that base of knowledge. And what you end up with is a corpus of grammar, logic, rhetoric, and math. And so what I did, thinking this post was interesting and doing some research on these books, and then kind of being sad that I'm a community college dropout that missed out on the chance for this education, was I bought all of these books and I started to read them. And while I was reading them, I came up with ideas about how to fine-tune an LLM. So let's grab another book. A book that might give us a great example. Ooh, I love this one. Critical Thinking, Logic, Problem Solving by Neuron Waves Lab. This book is very cool. It basically forces creative problem solving methods. Let's just start here with this page. I don't know how good my camera is my first time using this camera. I don't know if you can read it. I will read it to you. All right. While biases can unconsciously cloud judgment, fallacies are often used as deceptive tools in arguments. Recognizing both is vital to fostering critical thinking. Types of cognitive biases. Cognitive biases, we all have them. These automatic patterns of thought affect our judgments, decisions, and perceptions in ways that often go unnoticed. Cognitive biases can play a significant role in the choices we make, the opinions we form, and the way we interpret situations. By understanding them, you can become more aware of your own thought processes and make more informed decisions. Let's delve deep into the types of cognitive biases, explaining each one and offering examples for clarity. So then it goes on to list actor-observer bias and describe it and give an example, anchoring bias, attentional bias, availability heuristic, and let's see, wow, there is a lot of different cognitive biases. Let's see, there's 14 so far. All right, so there are 15 different cognitive biases that are explained here, and general impacts of cognitive biases. But where I really struck gold in inspiration was at the end of this. There are key takeaways, and then more often than not, here we go. Each chapter ends with practical exercises. So, over the next week, actively observe your decisions, big or small. Identify at least 3 instances where cognitive biases might have influenced you. And then there's like 3-4 questions. Let's read the last one. Recall a recent decision you made. Analyze the factors influencing your decision or any cognitive biases at play. So, knowing how fine-tuning works, I thought this is a goldmine for making an LLM smarter, or at least trying to give it some kind of creative reasoning ability, or at least contain some kind of creative reasoning advice in the output of the prompts, the answers. So what I did was I got PDF versions of all of these books, PDF or EPUB or however I could find the book. I went and I gathered up all the text that belongs in or that lives in all of these books. And then from that text, let's go look at my GitHub for a little bit. I built a couple small tools to help me do this that are also available for free for the public in Rust, which makes them a joy to work with and easy to read, in my opinion. This is a bunch of projects ago. So I scanned in, I downloaded all of the PDFs. A couple of the books, though, were not available. So I did sit there with the OCR on my phone, scanning in every page for the books that were not available. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist like that. From that, I don't think this tool is available publicly because it was so simple. But basically, I took a PDF, and every PDF I broke into 500 character chunks of text. So every book ended up as an array of 500 character elements in a big old YAML file. And then what I did was I took each of those chunks and, let's see, CLI tool for using AJ to turn exam questions into YAML datasets. Turn YAML book chunks. This is what we want. So we use AJ, which is Awful Jade, which we were just using. to turn YAML book chunks, which is just a list of 500 character sections of text, and we turn them into exam questions. This library or this CLI tool is actually pretty well documented. If you want to know how it works, this is the layout of the file that it expects, and the templates. So there is different kinds of questions. Let's start with just let's see, turn books that were parsed into chunks and placed in YAML files into exam questions. This is the key point, is that for every 500 characters, or not 500 characters, more like 500 words, for every 500 words in this book, let's say 500 words is that much, we send this text to a more powerful LLM, something bigger than 4 billion parameters. We send this text to that LLM and we say, you are a college professor. Please write me 3 exam questions that can only be answered by reading this chunk of text. And basically what we're doing is we are getting back from a larger LLM 3 questions that maybe our smaller 4 billion parameter model would not have thought of, basically. And then we'll have this chunk of text, and we will have 3 questions that can only be answered by this chunk of text. And then, once we have that, we can send that chunk of text with those 3 questions again to a larger LLM, and we can ask the LLM to answer those questions. And then from that, we get question-answer pairs, sufficiently complex question-answer pairs that should give us knowledge that our little 4 billion parameter LLM did not have. Basically, the knowledge that our 4 billion parameter LLM has is knowledge that it got from scanning the entire internet, conversations across the entire internet. And now, unless conversations were taking place in like a forum that had like college professors in it, like scrutinizing like each 500 word section of a book, we're going to get a lot of information that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So to see what these question answer pairs ended up looking like, we can head back over to Hugging Face and go to my Hugging Face, huggingface.co/DougieFresh. And the books were captured to a repository that I named Grammar, Logic, Rhetoric, and Math. And they contain, here we go, we can click to view the conversation. Each of these entries is a conversation with an LLM. Here is the question: compare and contrast the diction used in 2 quoted passages from the New Oxford Guide to Writing. Specifically address the following. Passage 1, he criticized and threatened and promised, from Wallace Stegner. Passage 2, lulling or larricking that unsoiled boiling beauty, from Dylan Thomas. I love that so much. Task, identify the diction style of each passage, formal, informal, literary, colloquial. Explain how the diction contributes to the overall tone and themes of each author's work. Relate your analysis to the concept of unusual diction as described in the New Oxford Guide to Writing. Your response must provide a detailed comparison that reflects an understanding of both diction styles and their literary significance. No think. So this was a no think prompt that we gave it. And then, so this was the question that we asked a more powerful, or dare I say very powerful LLM, that very powerful LLM also came up with this question. If you remember earlier, these questions all came from analyzing sections of my bookshelf. And then here is the answer from the LLM. Analysis of diction in literary contexts. Passage 1, he criticized and threatened and promised. Franklin Roosevelt, from Wallace Stegner. Part A, identification of diction style. Let's see. Passage 1, Wallace Stegner. The diction in this passage is formal and literary. The language is structured, precise, and employs elevated vocabulary. Words such as criticized, threatened, promised, played the audience like an organ, and denounced reflect a deliberate rhetorical tone. The sentence structure is complex, and the imagery is symbolic. For example, stroked them and lashed them. This style aligns with literary prose, suggesting a focus on thematic depth and emotional resonance. That sounds right to me. Then it goes on to the lolling and or larynxing, like a boiling beauty, gulped and ogled. What diction is colloquial, vivid, and highly poetic. Damn, why not me? But okay, so these are the answers that we would like our model to be aligned with. We want our answers to look more like this and less like they did when you ask the original Qwen 3.4b model this same question. And we ended up with 15, no, that's the training. Yeah. So we ended up with about 15.6 plus, so like 20,000 conversations. 20,000 conversations about grammar, logic, rhetoric, and math. I think here we see some math, maybe? Nope. Show me some math. Here we go, I see some math. Convert the polar equation x squared plus xy plus y squared equals 1 to polar coordinates and isolate r. Determine which of the following is the correct expression for r. A. You know, I can't do this. Not off the top of my head. I am capable of doing this, but not while I'm recording a screencast about how an LLM works. But here, yeah. I mean, LLMs are famously not great at math, so a big motivation behind wanting to fine-tune my LLM, my 4 billion parameter LLM, was to make it better at math so that I could learn how to do math better. But here we see, again, the question, the answer. But that isn't all that we fine-tuned Jade with. We also used Manpages. So we have about 20,000 questions that came directly from all of the Manpages that are on my macOS system. A Manpage would be, let me say, like man as in manual, copy. Copy is a command in macOS to copy thing that exists to somewhere else there. And that'll copy thing that exists to somewhere else. A man page just tells us how to use the copy command. So every single man page on my computer got split up into, roughly 500 token chunks, sometimes more, I think, maybe. There's things specific to each kind of data that I don't know off the top of my head. But, and then it went and generated 3 questions that could only be answered by reading the man page. I did this because LLMs lack a lot of information that's specific to the machine that I'm working on, and I wanted an LLM that I could just ask about commands on my specific computer when I didn't have the internet. So I fine-tuned it on all of the tools that are available on macOS computers. Also, we used System Programming Code Conversations, which is made up of, let's go back to the knowledge synthesizer. System Programming Conversations were generated from GitHub repositories specific to systems programming. mdBooks, which is a form of Rust documentation where Rust has a tool called mdBook, which makes it very easy to generate PDFs or websites that are very easy to read and contain documentation and instructions on how to use Rust projects. So I found my favorite Rust documentation, found the source code to the mdBooks, split it up into certain size token chunks, asked an LLM questions about it, got responses, used the question response pairs as data to fine-tune the LLM. And then also TLDR. So I took every command from TLDR and also generated questions. TLDR is an open source project that it works like Manpages, except it gives you easier to read output. Whereas we could say man copy will give us the detailed manual for how to use the copy command. TLDR will give us a much easier to read version with do we not? Page cache not found, TLDR. All right, we need to update TLDR real quick before we can use it. And we can TLDR copy. And this gives us a bunch of different examples of the ways that people most commonly use copy and the most commonly use flags. So our training data also contains questions about every single command that TLDR supports. I think that's probably a pretty good summary. That's as good as we're going to get without just talking for hours about the details of each kind of knowledge. But just basically we could say the knowledge comes from books, it comes from source code repositories, it comes from Manpages, it comes from Rust documentation, and it comes from TLDR documentation. I might have even left all of the training data in here. Incomplete? Yeah. So grammar, logic, rhetoric, math, and you get each book and the prompt and the final exam questions that were generated from each prompt. Then we took those final exam questions and we used Awful Dataset Builder to take YAML question files built by Awful Knowledge Synthesizer and turn them into YAML dataset files using AJ to query an LLM for answers. AJ is Awful Jade. Awful Jade also works on the command line. We can use this command alias for Awful AJ, which is just A in my shell. And we can ask Jade questions right on our command line. Here's one that's in my history. Hello, I'm recording a screencast about you. Care to introduce yourself? We added the nothink tag because we just want a quick response. And there we go. Hello, I'm Awful Jade, a security-focused assistant developed by Awful Security. Yada yada yada. What would you like to explore? I guess what I would like to explore is how source code is formatted if I ask it a question that requires source code. Can you please write for me the how we spell Fibonacci wrong? Fibonacci sequence in Rust. We can do new think again. And there we go. We get a program that will print us a Fibonacci sequence, and it is formatted and the source code is highlighted, which is actually really great when I'm just working in my terminal and I need a quick answer or some code. I get it right here. I can copy, paste it into the program that I'm working on. No problem. If you want to see the source code that makes up Awful Jade, the CLI tool, the command line interface, it is right here on my GitHub, github.com/graves/awful_AJ. And it is just I was going to say simple, it is actually a fairly complex Rust program, because it also adds in the idea of long-term memory, which I won't get into in this video, but it uses a vector database to find things that we've talked about in the past and then inject it into the context window of the conversation that we're having. It's a more complex, detailed discussion that I'll probably save for another video. So that about does it. As just a quick review, Jade Qwen 3 4B is a systems programming Qwen Finetune that has a ton of different client apps available. One for iOS and iPadOS, one for command line terminal use, and the model itself is available to use in any client that supports large language models. All of the data that we use to fine-tune Qwen is available to the public, open source at huggingface.co/DougieFresh. All of the different clients and tools we use to build it are available on GitHub at github.com/graves. I hope you all enjoy it. I know this was very long-winded for what was supposed to be just a brief introduction to the how and why I made Jade. But if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. My social links are on my blog. My contact information is on my blog. So thank you. I hope you enjoy it. Hope to hear from you soon.